Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2. Allow me to introduce the high-tech Protoss in the blue. It's classic. Up against the #1 ranked player in the world by Dark. It's Dark, the final boss, a best of 3 PvZ, with Dark already trying to slide Zerglings into classic space. A classic tactic. Just like me trying to slide in a smooth segue to asking you to like and subscribe. And Jimmy, it wasn't that smooth. I had 1,271 likes on this video, on this cast, on this series, on yet another Dark one. And I'll cast another one. And statistically likely, it will be Dark. But hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. I tallied it up. Over the last week, from the games between the ESL, the GSL, and any other SLs out there, I think those are all of them, for now. I had about 50 games, and about 28 to 30 of them feature Dark, because he just has a way of getting into things, including your base, despite the fact there's an Oracle and a Depths out, just building random amounts of Zerglings. This does cut pretty heavily into Dark's economy. He's only got 34 drones. But if his opponent is not... Classic activated the Oracle in order to deal with the Zerglings that slipped into the main, which means he didn't have the energy to stop Dark from canceling the third. The devil is in the details. And the details are in the Zerglings. And the Zerglings are in Classic's base, thus the problem. But this time around, there's enough Oracles and enough energy to drive Dark away. 2 Oracles to start, a third one, the Treacles, to kick things off. Whereas a robotics facility directly behind. Meanwhile, Dark going for a lair himself. Zerglings try to slip in again, but now there's a Depths. Oracle on standby. And... ooh. There is no Spore Crawler, but that means the Queens are able to maneuver even easier around the mineral line. So despite the emotional and physical damage that Dark has clearly already done, only now is it really starting to show up in the worker count. As investing in all those... if he didn't get the cancel on the base, if he didn't force the Oracles to stay at home, this could have long-term consequences. It's a risk. It's a medium risk for high reward out of Dark with the early Zerglings. And I think it paid off, but not so much so that Classic is not a threat. The Oracle's heading in towards the main. 5 Adepts. Just a light to medium pressure. And will he actually complete the shade? He does. The Zergling's on standby. Has to recall out. Won't lose any of the Adepts. Nice quick recall there. Oracles come in, but the Queens politely yet firmly ask them to leave. The Adepts back at home. Alright, Robo Bay Twilight Council is Classic. Pulls out his Prima strategy guide and starts checking off parts of the tech tree that he hasn't yet gotten. As Classic just in love with those high-tech Protoss builds, sometimes to his detriment, but sometimes it allows him to just catapult into victory. Dark Infestation Pit on the way, as well as an Overseer headed in towards the main. And he will get eyes on the Twilight finishing, the Robo Bay, the Forge. So this doesn't really narrow down the tech very much. As right now, Classic mostly focused on the ground army. He didn't even get blinked. He's going straight towards charge. And get off my... The Queens take out one of the Oracles. And a Stasis on the gold base. Surprised Dark didn't take... By the way, Dark didn't even take the gold, which is kind of a crazy moment. That's actually a rarity in Dark expanding, quote-unquote, normally here. But instead just deciding on a more standard layout, though I'm assuming as time goes on, the gold base will be open for business. Looks like we're going just full-on tech rush for everyone involved. There's a fleet beacon as well. +1 air, extended thermal lance, charge. +1 ground weapons, another Stargate, and a new car for Classic. He gets absolutely everything and then some. He will have access to the entire tech tree besides Templar. And I bet that's next on the agenda. As when you're going carriers, it's definitely a carrier rush, if we're getting technical about it. This is way quicker than you're usually going carriers in your average game. But it isn't the first thing on the agenda. Essentially, Dark scouted that... There's the Templar Arc. He scouted that Classic was going to go for this ground army. He sees the Robo Base, he sees the Twilight, he sees the Forge upgrading. Alright, you got a ground army. And now the carriers are arriving. So Classic kind of skipping the step where we go back and forth with that ground army versus Colossi or Lurkers on either side. And instead is trying to get enough carriers for a knockout blow that sweeps Dark out of the game. But right now he has to make it look good. He has to sell to Dark that he's going for a ground-based push. I don't know if Dark is exactly buying what he's selling right now, but he's got Lurkers on the way. The only indicator that Dark is Dark is unaware of the carriers based on the fact he doesn't have a Spire. Except, Dark is one of the few players who I've seen deal with carriers without a Spire. Though it is kind of it puts a timer on your unit composition, because 6-8 carriers with Storm underneath, eventually the Hydras are just not gonna get the job done. So, maybe Infestors, but there are none of them on the field. A Nidus is on the way. Lurker Nidus can be used to dismantle the defense. Dark has been using a lot of tactical Nidus in order to reinforce pushes, which feels like the natural evolution, puns intended, of Zerg strategy. It's just no one, until this year, it feels like, with Cyril and Dark, no one's really used it very regularly for that. But now, Dark is nearly maxed out. He's got Hive Tech Lurkers finishing up. +2, +1 in production. He doesn't know yet about the carriers, but we'll see if he cares about them. Meanwhile, Nidus into the main. Classic. He has the Warpins to respond. It will keep him busy. Dark scouts the carriers producing. Warp Prism towards the north side, intercepted by the Queens. Not taken out yet. Nidus actually finishes Queens on the run. Meanwhile, the Lurkers are headed right towards the natural, where there's 2 Robos looking vulnerable right now. The carriers are completely out of position. Revelation dropped across the board there. But the Robos are very likely going to be taken out. But the carriers, he yanks it in, but to what end? Yeah, now you're closer. There's only like 3 Hydras underneath. Parasitic Bomb is helpful. Those 3 Hydras trying their damnedest to get the damage done, but there's just not enough anti-air here. The reflexive abduct into realizing you don't have any counter to carriers. Dark throws 20 more Hydras into production. And he's actually got a few in the main. He managed to pick off some of the probes. He took out the base at the bottom right. But Classic is most of the way to building the full carrier death ball. The Storms dropped across the front line, but the Robo is taken out. Dark finished what he started. And a mothership is on the way. Stats popularizing it. And the tactical mothership, which nowadays costs less than a carrier, depending on how you measure it, but 350, 250 for the carrier, 300 for the mothership. But that, like, they might sell you the carrier, but they don't sell you the interceptors. Those come separately. Well, they sell you 4 interceptors, but 15 minerals apiece. So the effective cost of a carrier baseline is actually 410 minerals and 250 gas. And it only gets worse over time as the interceptors start dying. It's not a massive investment. We've gone back and forth on the inflation for interceptor costs. At one point it was 5, at one point it was 25. 15 is the compromise we landed on, not quite a while ago now. Ever since we stopped messing with like Graviton, Catapult, and Release Interceptor. The not so good old days. The Hydras will scout the Prism will scout the Hydras. Neither is particularly happy about this. The Lurkers at the Watchtower will be driven back by the carriers. Hydra's forced to retreat. Carrier count, 8 of them, going on more. Building 2 at a time, still rebuilding that double Robo. In fact, Classic was left without any Robos at all. So making detection a little bit more painful. You still have the Oracles, but those are active revelation, rather. The Nidus uncontested at the natural here. Dark just throwing it out there. Here come the oracles to deal with it. Well, that's certainly a response. Okay. Dark's like, fine. Okay, dude, use your stasis. Sure, this is the... He had plenty of time to deal with that, and now the problem has escalated, and Dark found 2 more robos and will absolutely rip them apart. He may just pop right back into the Nidus before this is all said and done. Slaps down another one. This is becoming way too much of an issue. Denies +2 air weapons. Dark is getting way too much mileage out of this Nidus. I have no idea what Classic was thinking. He's like, what if I stasis things that come out of it? Well, Dark missed the opportunity to actually dive back into the Nidus. Rarely do you see someone trading out lurkers for corruptors. But I guess Dark doesn't really have any other unit. He only has 17 Zerglings. Lurkers are kind of the dead weight now, which is... Well, he's building 7 more lurkers, so... That argument doesn't hold up very well, but... That's so many carriers. 11 carriers. And going on unlucky 13. We'll see if Classic can make it work. Meanwhile, essentially all the rest of the upgrades being upgraded by Dark. He's got a Baneling Nest on the way with Baneling Speed as well, which is likely a misclick, or Dark knows something we don't. Always possible. Double air upgrades, just finished +1. Weapons, and now going on Carapace. Another Nidus at the natural. We got Ultraless Speed in production. I assume chitinous plating is already there. Indeed it is. But the carriers. All of this is kind of burying the lead here. As the real issue at the end of the day are the carriers, the Templar, and the Mothership. Probably in that order. Time Warp used. The Queen's on the back line. Microbial Shroud trying to deal with the Interceptors here. Starts yanking in carriers. We'll knock a couple down. Microbial Shroud across the board. Active Cloaking is irrelevant when that many Spore Crawlers are on the field. Microbial Shroud still going to work. The Corruptors. And it looks like Dark has the numbers of pretty much everything. He weathers the storms, and the Shroud helps his units against the carriers. And unironically, Microbial Shroud, the real winner of that fight. The carrier's unable. It reduces the damage from air attacks on the ground by half. And interceptors don't do much damage. They attack twice, and there's a lot of them. So the Microbial Shroud really paying dividends there. And by the way, why is there a creep tuber back here? Oh. Was that you, Susan? Yeah. So, Dark is taking his half of the map, held it strongly, and now he's just, like, Classic is not respecting this. You gotta stop the spread. Okay, well, that's one way to do it. I didn't mean, like, pause the game, but apparently. But we don't wait for anyone here. How many carriers? He's just rebuilt the carriers. I'm not sure. Well, he attacked into the most entrenched position, pretty much, that he could find. So, if he does anything but that, a Queen comes out, recalls 1 carrier away. But the main base itself is now vulnerable. The Mothership about to pop out in an awkward situation. Dark immediately spawn kills it. The Time Warp actually quite helpful. Dark can lose some of the Queen with the transfuse. Remember me! Still a creep tuber on the way. Not gonna be left behind, but... So, both players are banking money. They can rebuild their armies. Not entirely, but to a significant extent. Some Tempest now, out of Classic. Realizing you might need something a little more reliable, even if overall less damage. The Corruptor's looking for an opportunity. How many Vipers? 2 of them. I don't know. I think they're mixed into the army. No, they're not. He's just sniping off the carriers as they come out. The Tempest as well. The Colossi have just been hanging out. Eventually get knocked down. Lurkers absolutely eviscerated the base towards the center. And Classic is just chasing down Corruptors all over the map. The lurker line. Literal line of lurkers. How many lurkers in total? 16. Classic is just getting run around right now by Dark. Yeah, that had, yes, of course, the forward baneling nest. A classic tactic. Well, against classic tactic. I've had that before. I think he was trying to build spore crawlers. But, you know, not worth the effort to deal with. Oh, does he see the stasis? Oh my god. He definitely saw it. Kind of surprised he didn't split off any banelings to trigger it, but either way. Well, Dark is working on 3-3 Classic, still just turtling up. Hasn't rebuilt a mothership yet. I say yet, as it's pretty common nowadays. Classic. We learned this lesson before. Alright, he lights up the oracles. The stasis, not the ideal counter. Carrier here. We'll clean it up. The Tempest starting to shell. He's got 4 Tempest mixed in. Dealing with the changelings with the carrier. Quite a disproportionate response. Dark has more in the... Yeah, he's just throwing some into banelings here. Bottom right. Oh my god! Well, those cannons are stacked up pretty nicely for the banelings. Dark not even bothering with the probes, really. Eventually we'll get around to him. Obliterates 15 and most of the cannons, but oh, there was a mothership the whole time! But the mothership will be recalled back. Storms on the Corruptors. Got a couple Tempests on the field. But Classic is running out of real estate here. Dark is spending banelings in order to kill some of the defenses, which is gas in the long run. Does he have a Greater Spire done? No, Dark doesn't actually have a Greater Spire, so he can't do a big switch into Broodlords, if that becomes necessary. Dark even a little supply blocked at the moment, but here's the Death Ball. Feedbacks on the Queens. Some Corruptors being intercepted, which the most accurate term when carriers are involved. Dark has removed the bottom right. He is denying the center. A full recall. I believe a mothership recall there, yeah. Total recall onto the mothership. But now 3-3 is done. Classic never found those 3-3 upgrades. In fact, he's only at 2-1 in the air and 2-2. Or +2 attack and +2 shields on the ground. Which I guess is more beneficial for the Archons. But it does feel like Dark is just waiting to pick the right fight. Whereas Classic has been just kind of swinging this army around. There are 25 Corruptors on the field. Trying to stay out of range of those Lurkers. The Nidus eats some hits. The Lurkers having a tough time. But the Zerglings get onto the base. Adrenal Glance, Dark has the full laundry list of upgrades. 8. Classic's actually down to 27 probes, which is critically low at this point. Dark has taken out 10, 15 with most of these attacks, and for the most part, Classic has not replaced them. But that also means his army is absolutely massive. 160 army supply and counting. I mean, we don't go too much higher here, but... Meanwhile, Dark, not a slouch at 130. But he's bringing so much to bear. The classical death ball. Puns intended. Stasis stopping those Zerglings for now. I'm gonna kill a couple more probes. Speaking of... Oh my god, he storms his own probes! The Templar was too busy asking whether or not it could before asking whether or not it should. Loses a couple more. The parasitic bomb on top of everything. I don't know if that's the fight you should be looking to take, though. Dark agrees. Parasitic bomb will soften up the shields. The Zerglings come out of stasis. If only someone could have predicted this. But I think Classic's had enough. He's ready to go here, despite all his units pretty much being stripped of shields by the parasitic bomb. The Tempests are chunking their way through. Classic was using some of that active cloaking, but Dark, slowly but surely whittling away at the army. And Classic doesn't have enough probes to really perpetuate the game much further. He has to do this now, or die trying. And Neural Parasite, the Infestors reveal it for the first time. How many Infestors on the field? Only 2. Okay, so he's not going to be taking out the entire army with the army. An Ultra on the way, but now can Dark deal with the Death Ball? Active Cloak. The Zerglings in the main may deny the air upgrades yet again. Needs everything he can get out of those Vipers and then some. Looks like +2 air armor will actually finish, and that may be relevant. Feedbacks onto the Vipers. Tempest finished the job. Denied +3 air. Oof. The Tempest shelling, though, just continually chunking away. The more reliable damage compared to the carriers. Just zoning. With the Templar, Classic's army is still equal with Dark's. Dark is rebuilding Hydras here. Still has to dismantle this Death Ball somehow. The Baneling Nest might stop him. Dark is still max, but the feedbacks across the board. I think he missed the Viper there. There's Overseers within the army, making it difficult. The Templar starting to run lower on energy, but they still have plenty of Storms. The Zerglings are putting an actual base trade on the table as Dark continues to dance around here, looking for that fight. Ideally with Classics looking the other way for just a split second. But the Templar are doing such a good job of zoning out. Detection is becoming a massive issue. There's still one Oracle. Here comes Dark. He splits. He's on top of everything. Forces the Storms on top of the Protoss army. Lurkers underneath. Doing whatever they can against the Templar. And it looks like the Corruptor count is high enough that Classic will be wiped out of the skies. And doesn't have enough left on the ground. Dark still has money in the bank. He's building 22 Hydras. Classic is praying that Dark doesn't have any money left, but not this time. 17 Brood. Now that's a statement, is what that is. He doesn't need to build 17 Brood Lords, but that clearly demonstrates Dark's capabilities at this point. And honestly, I suspect he won't even engage that army till those Brood Lords are ready to do so, as he wants to show Classic. So, how long before Classic GG's? Less than half a second or more? I think that was less. Dark swarms over the top. He's able to hold on by whittling down the economy and forcing the fight. And Classic knocked down in game 1. Never really got anything going. Dark was able to keep control of the situation and never let go. I feel like that almost like a ladder Protoss style of I'm just gonna turtle the carriers is a bit dated at this level of StarCraft 2. It can still work. As you could see, Dark was very, very wary of taking a bad fight against that sort of unit. Because even if you have 5k in the bank, 3 Storms, and a little bit of time with the carriers, and that can evaporate. So, game 2. Ocean Blue. I do think the Tempest earlier may have been the call. It really does. There was a remarkable lack of response to the Nidus. Like, you don't want to overreact, because the Nidus might not have anything in it. Honestly, at that stage of the game, you have to be very wary of getting distracted and getting out of position with your main army. But at the same time, you can't just let Lurkers and Queens take up residence in your natural. Because eventually, you will no longer have a natural. Dark will. So, it was a remarkable lack of response on that I think eventually ended up kind of dictating the pace of the rest of the game. We'll see, though. Game 2, Stargate is the choice. Oracle. I had a revelation that this would be the case, but not exactly a big risky prediction on that one. Now the question will be whether Classic follows it up with anything. I think Dark playing a bit... He's playing the opponent just as much as he's playing... Classic has a tendency to want to sit back and turtle. So Dark just builds a bunch of lings. He's doing whatever he can to really mess with Classic's plan. Because I'm sure if Classic is allowed to sit back, he has the most beautiful unit composition, the sharpest timings. But, it's like punching water against Dark. It doesn't matter how sharp your sword or how brutal your fists. You may drown here on Oceanborn if you don't deal with Dark. Oracle's fine over. This time around, no cancel on the 3rd. He's thinking about it, but doesn't want to risk it. Queens. Zoning out the oracles, but there's no spore! Taking a lot of damage on one of the oracles. Only 2 kills, as is customary. I do wonder, because when you build a spore crawler, you killed 1 drone. Now this, no one ever factors this in. By no one, I mean, I guess most people. Anyone I want to feel intellectually superior to, which is most people. But when you build a spore, you've now spent 75 minerals and a drone. A drone which mines 50, 60 minerals a minute till the end of time. So how many drones is it worth losing to not build a spore? The answer is less than 5. All right, less than 6. It's definitely lower than 6. It's like, I think 2 is the line we draw. You lose 3 drones, and the Protoss is winning that exchange. Obviously, like every single thing else, it depends. But especially earlier on, like 1 drone out of 30 is a pretty significant chunk of your economy. It's measurable. They're all measurable, but 1 drone out of 50, yeah. And also another important point. All right, let me put my Cyril's Zerg accounts manager hat on, where larva management is also key, especially because Dark goes for these Zergling timings. The larva's a little tight, all right? And you can't necessarily, early on when you have your queens, you have to split them between creep spread, between injects, and just, you know, being in position to deal with the oracles. You don't always have as much larva as you need. Brenda, we said not to go past this fire! I can't... Oh, Brenda! No! Oh! Okay, alright, well... Dark sent his queen back to inject. That queen was revelated. It was tagged with revelation. He saw the spire. Or, option 2, Classic is just building a second Stargate and a fleet beacon because that's what Classic does. But the timing was pretty much exactly the same. So, the fact he's not building any Phoenixes makes me think... did he see it? Now, wait a second. If you have tagged a unit, and that unit scouts a building, does it stay in your vision? Like, I am reasonably certain the spire was in vision there, but... Well, carriers are on the way. 9 corruptors. Dark is looking to swat the corruptors out of the sky immediately. But interesting point. I'm not 100% sure on that. The revelation thing. But that may have been the key. Honestly, though, I think Classic was going carriers either way. Even if he scouts the spire, he's like, well, I'm gonna go carriers. I'm gonna make sure they don't get sniped. Doesn't scout a spire, I'm gonna go carriers and maybe attack. The real difference is where the carriers go, not whether the carriers exist. All right.
I am here in the shadow.
This is not going to tell me anything, but interesting. So many revelations today. Extended thermal lens done for the Colossi. Classic just filling out that entire tech tree. Straight up carriers. Like, he's not switching it up at all. This is a bit of a smaller map, which is usually better because you can force a fight in a better location. Dark is going Sky Zerg against it, which, well, it's a good thing Classic has that Templar Archives finally on the way, as Sky Zerg is quite a choice. Just mass mutas. So many. Now, I don't know. Muta's not incredible against carriers. Dude, this is Classic. He will commit. He will keep going carriers. Now we see. Now we see the Phoenix range on the way, as Classic has obviously scouted the mutas. But, I mean, the carriers are a decent response, but they have to be close enough to be useful. +1 air weapons isn't even done yet. Mass cannon here for Classic. Ah, Dark. Just flying him around in circles. Classic bleeding out a few probes. But does Dark have an infestation pit? Does he have a hive? This is where a lot of these sort of builds get tripped up. Which is, you know, having a transition. Like a follow-up. Having things like Vipers. There's the infestation pit. But now Dark is kind of locked in. He's just going to jump the army heads up. Goes straight for the carriers. Trying to zone out with the Corruptors. Wipes most of it out of the sky. But was it worth it? He's lost. He killed 1 carrier and 1 Phoenix and 1 Oracle. But he's lost 8 Mutas, 2 Corruptors. These fights aren't going to get much easier. Once +1 air and enough Phoenixes are done, Dark starts the hive immediately, realizing he's probably getting too locked into this unit composition. But now that he's gone down this road, it's almost impossible to take an off-ramp. You just gotta accelerate and do more. 29 Banelings. Though no speed yet. Revelation keeping tabs on everything. The Corruptors. Now, the Phoenix is looking to zone out, but the Corruptors are tanking the majority of the damage. Very hard to actually target them without just moving into position. Corruptors helping to zone out the Phoenixes on top of the probes. What a battle in the skies. Literally Dark shielding with the Corruptors, the Mutas, which depower the entire tech tree. 2 Stargates, a Templar Archives, and a Forge all depowered. The Muta's getting caught out ahead here, losing a lot of them to the Phoenixes. In fact, he's down to 3. He's down to 2. And even though Dark has been doing a great job effectively body blocking in the sky, the Phoenixes are just so efficient. Ultralisk Cavern in the way, something on the way, something that can't be lifted by the Phoenixes. But that's still a long way off. And Classic now has the army. Dark doesn't really have a response to the ground army right now. It's just Ravager Ling Bane. Oh my god, it's a lot of Ravager Ling Bane, though. So we'll see. Here come the Archons. Has Classic bitten off more? They can shoot beautiful force fields to the north. He actually walled it off perfectly. Finally gets through, but the damage is already done. Dark losing that front line, but the Queens! Look at the takedown. They take down the Prism, but they're up in the sky. Flying again, but not the way they'd like. The Queen's getting taken out by the Pulse Crystals and the Phoenixes. Picking up more Ravagers. Classic starting to dismantle the defense, but Dark still has so much behind it. Roach is popping out. Will be annihilated by the Archons. A base vulnerable, but Dark still has 5, even minus this one. Classic has his 5th base up. The army supply is dead even here. 11 more Ravagers on the way. Kind of a sign of desperation. Mass Phoenix. Dark is going to... He went from directly engaging the Sky Toss. Now, he's just going to try to circumvent it with the Ultralisks. Which is... It's hard to tell here. Or that somehow this game has gone sideways again. But completely different than the last one. Where Dark was kind of slowly whittling down Classic. Instead, he tried to pry a crowbar into the base. And Classic made him pay for it. The simple fact is, right now, the Phoenixes have the run of the place. There is nothing to challenge them. The corrosive bow is making it difficult. Individual corruptors are nothing compared to this. He's gonna walk into his own corrosive bows if he's not careful. Each corruptor getting targeted and killed. Spawn camp, just like his mothership's last game. Throws up some more corrosive bows. Just, this is happening. I don't Well, this is kind of cyberbullying here, but... Dark just not really responding. He's building corruptors. They just come out piecemeal. He can't get it up. Dark is just... He's bled out so much now. He's lost twice as many minerals and over twice as much gas. This is disastrous. He's never going to financially recover from this. At least not in the near future. So Classic has taken pole position, I feel. And now it's on Dark to come up with a response before Classic is able to solidify his death ball. He's getting now more Archons underneath. Does he have Immortals? He does not. So the Ultras still have some potential here. A whole lot of Zerglings on the field as well. But Classic has a solid 5 bases, and there aren't that many bases to take on this map. Only really 1 or 2 more. Both sides maxed out, but neither with the ability to rebuild. Nothing in the bank. Alright, a huge gamble. Big counterattack here from Dark. Trying to force the issue. Parasitic Bomb. The Phoenix is taking a lot of damage. Ravager's trying to get what they can. But the anti-air is... It's gone. It's gone. There's nothing left to challenge the carriers. Checkmate. He's building 9 corrosive. He's going to try to kill carriers with corrosive bile. If anyone can do it. All Classic has to do is survive at home. Bring some of the army back. The Colossi may get overrun here. Rarely you see Colossi dying to Zerglings, but the ankle biters are on top. The carriers are just rampaging through the base, and Classic has survived the onslaught and struck back. Dark tried the Sky Zerg, but once again, showing and demonstrating why Sky Zerg is a rare sight in this day and age. I'm still not sure about whether the Spire was intended as a direct response to Classic's kind of carrier rush, or if he just wanted to sneak mutas in. But at the end of the day, it looked so good for Dark right up until it didn't. Which was about the time all the mutas died horribly to the range Phoenixes. And Jimmy, please, game 3 on Site Delta, as they so often are. A map that is inoffensive to almost every player. About as standard, about as cookie cutter as we get. But with a ramp up to the natural, Protoss feeling a little bit more comfortable defending early, but with expansions to either side and a decent amount of space to work with, Zergs not going to complain too much either. But still, Classic proving he can hang with them. He just rushes up the tech tree so quickly. You have to have a decisive response. Yes, there are clear vulnerabilities to rushing carriers. But at the same time, en masse, it is still one of the strongest units in any version of the game. We'll see what Dark has in store for us. And I think, well, this is the dilemma for Protoss. You've just won a game. Does Classic mix it up, or does he stick with the same build and give Dark an opportunity to adapt? Now, and then you have to, you play the poker game of, but if I switch up my build and I do an all-in, and he's expecting the same build. But if he expects me to switch up my build, then doing the same build will do better. And all the tech for Protoss is so expensive that you can't easily kind of shift from one gear to another. You kind of get stuck going down one direction. Or if you decide to go down multiple, you have to sit in your base behind your defenses, like Classic has done. So, two more gases on the way. So all that tells us is he's probably not doing a charge lot timing. Dark will see some of it. A robotics facility. So looking to fill in yet again. It seems like he's going down the same road. That drone. Stressing out. Oh no, Dark! What is happening? Oh no! Some of the drones were worshipping the Overlord. They're really into the tentacles, which I'm not here to judge, but I am here to comment that they probably should be mining minerals. Protoss not nearly as much of a fan. Twilight Council. And a Phoenix on the way. I might have been wrong about the charge lot timing. He hasn't built probes for a while. Blink? No forge. The robo exists, but it looks like a straight up blink tank. Classic cut probes for a time, but he cut probes to build a bunch more gateways. Dark is gonna go Spire. So Classic is definitely mixing it up. This is the first time he's followed up with Blink. But this is one Oracle. Flies right over the Spire. I can't help but think that's an intentionally placed Spire. Like, Dark wouldn't mind if it's scouted. But it's not obvious, but it's not obvious. Maybe I'm reading way too much into this, but the amount of Stalkers should give away to Dark what this is. You rarely have the... Okay, well... But you guys, what is wrong with you? Are you paying attention? Protoss these days. Spire's about to complete. It's just straight up Blink Stalkers with a proxy gate. Classic is at 61 probes. He is adding more, but not a bunch. Well, he was a bit supply less, but he really does want to get something done here, because this is a unit composition that does not get much better as time goes on. You just add more and more Stalkers. So if they have a counter to 10 stalk, well, okay. He's building 3 pylons at the front. It is Blink all in. Here we go. Classic has decided to entirely mix it up. No upgrade Blink Stalkers like it's 2010. Obviously, the Oracles and Phoenixes are an extra detail here. He's going to go for the hatchery. Dark doesn't have that much in response. Roach Ravager Zergling is good, but again, it's very much a numbers game. If Classic has a comparable army supply of Blink Stalkers, especially off creep, he can easily out-micro this, and he has the Oracles as well. Stasis caught a couple Queens here. The Oracles can protect him from getting surrounded by Zerglings. And Dark, bleeding out some Overlords here as well. Definitely caught off guard by the sheer hubris of this timing. That's so many Stalkers! He's got 35 Stalkers! Oh my god. 26 more Zerglings on the way. Dark with a counterattack. Oh. Corrosive Biles spray, but he blunks forward. There were still some Corrosive Biles. The Zerglings trying to get on top. +1 melee is done. But the Stalkers are dead. They blunk on top of the Queens. The drones are pulled. But the Oracles come in after the Queens are taken out as well, adding some damage. The Zerglings have to come back to defend. Drones pulled off the line. Probes dying on the other side as well. Classic. He's not doing this in a vacuum. Dark is still doing damage. But Dark is down 20 supply, and the Stalkers are still intact, and the shields are starting to regenerate. Dark is even losing Overlords here. And Classic with a classic tactic. Ye old blink all in. He pulls it out of his hand, slaps it down on the table. And Dark says, is that even a legal card? And we have to check the rule book that says, yes, Blink does still exist against Zerg. I mean, it's usually used a bit more of it as a scalpel than a crowbar, but here we are. The infestation pit. 4 infestors on the way, but Dark has lost a bunch of Overlords. That's how you know when a Zerg is caught entirely off guard. When they're losing Overlords at a base that's being attacked. Sometimes they'll look to fight, but there wasn't even the time to run away or float away as quickly as possible with the bags of hot air there. So there's a hive done, adrenal glands. It's going to be 2 base Zergling. Dark did some counter damage. And Classic, of course, is not going to miss an opportunity to try to get carriers anyways. He's just building Mass Oracle. How many Queens are there? 0. That's not very many. And that means the anti-air is... The reliable anti-air is non-existent. There's Fungal. There's Corrosive Bile. Neither of these things are nearly guaranteed to kill Oracles. The Proxy Gate. The Triple Pylon. You know, if this was just 1 pylon, you might not be able to hold it. But 3? Now this. The one thing is that there are no upper... I can't believe I'm watching Stalkers outflank Zerglings. Adrenal Glands is 12 seconds off, but the Fungals are here now. He's burning through that 1 Oracle. I mean, might as well throw out the Fungal, right, Doc? Double Oracle now. Yeah. Dark is... There's a lot of comeback opportunity in what Dark has. He's got Infestors. He's got Adrenalings. He just ripped apart a Nexus with no cancel. But Classic still just has so many Stalkers. And the Oracles. He goes back to the Stargate, reaches for the Oracles, but there's no anti... There is a potential that this fails horribly. If he gets hit by perfect Corrosive Biles. Fungals are a major threat, but it also is a deadly composition. Blink Oracle could catch Dark incredibly off guard, even though he knows the threats are there. So, Classic is in a winning position, but he's not out of the woods yet. The Oracles, there's so many! 8 Oracles staying well spread, burning through the Queens, burninating the countryside. No one is safe. Well, most of those under a spore are safe, but it's gonna go through the spores at the natural. Well, just 1 spore. And absolutely melt the drones. Again, Classic goes for the Stargate. There's Vipers on the way, as there's no other anti-air. Like, he keeps trying to find, but he's coming up empty. There's no Hydras. queens are stuck at home. There's actually no anti-air on this side of the map. Corrosive Bile is a prayer. So many Zerglings over to the left side. Dark is still making such a game of this, as Classic is not protecting his bases particularly adequately. He's forced to recall out. He's chasing down the army. Dark is struggling here. The clear favorite in this match, but Classic. Revelation against Burrow. The Oracle is finding so much value. Dark refuses to surrender, as there's still the tiny and becoming smaller chance of actually doing a full-on base trade. And he's still alive. All right, he's got Burrowed Infestors. He's killing bases. +3 melee is on the way. Mass Zergling could be the saving grace. 18 to 30 workers. Dark is trying to drag this game into pure chaos. And there are 3 near full energy Vipers. He's burrowing Zerglings, forcing out multiple revelations and minimizing the energy on those oracles. If he has 2 fungals, he could potentially kill probes with them as well. So, in Classic only has 18 probes left. No, the Vipers! No! Oh no! The entirety of the game was revolving around landing those parasitic bombs. But a single Phoenix and the Viper's in the wrong spot at a very wrong time. And actually, well, I take it back. Well, 2 Vipers survived, but they've been revealed. Okay. Classic is now down to 2 bases. And probes are... He's down to 14 probes. Dark is... He's got toothpicks and a paperclip and a bag of chewing gum. And he hasn't even chewed it. He's just throwing the chewing gum at Classic. And Classic's like, hey! That's annoying. But it keeps working and keeps distracting him. But Classic, he still has almost double the army supply. He has all the tools to kill Dark. Now can he use them? Parasitic Bomb onto the Oracles. The Oracles will split. Transfuse attempted. The Archons, though. +3 melee is not going to do anything. Dark is trying to drag this into an actual base trade. Parasitic Bomb killed most of the Oracles. But there's a hard wall at the natural. And Dark... he may eventually see the light. Like he's going into a literal... I want to kill all your buildings. There's a single stasis. I don't know if it'll trigger on those Zerglings. How he wants. Yeah. Oh no. Unfortunately for Dark, at least he doesn't get walled out. But buying time. Recall is off cooldown. He's consuming one of his last buildings. There's oracles in the main. Dark taps it out. Makes him work for it, but at the end of the day, Classic powers through with a remarkable diversity of strategies that all ended in Stargate. But, wow. Definitely an interesting series. To say that ZVP right now is my favorite matchup, which is mostly Dark versus Protoss, but still. Certainly something a little bit different, but Classic takes a 2-1 victory over the final boss. And, well, I hope it made your day a little bit better. If you got the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon, YouTube membership, and the GSL. But thank you for watching. I hear liking and subscribing is still free for now. And if you haven't yet checked out the second channel for more streams, other games, and, you know, just some SC too. If you got more hours in the day, be awesome to check that out. Same with the recommended, very helpful on those videos. But otherwise, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.